Hello, my name is Chuck Norton. Today, I wanted to speak with you about some of the concerns that come with new media. Strangely enough, the problems and pitfalls of new media are often many of the same ones that we have seen in the biases and other such issues that have been observed in the old so-called elite media. According to a recent Pew Research study, online sources are now the second most popular source of news next to television, and there is every expectation that eventually it will be number one. We have all been told that there is a lot of garbage and misinformation on the internet. This is true, but it is not always easy to spot. Some of it is so clever and subtle, and allegedly comes from credible sources, that even the well-educated can fall for them hook, line, and sinker. In my view, the most effective form of propaganda is often the most subtle. It is known as attitude change propaganda. In attitude change propaganda, the consumer is presented with only some of the facts. They are given a narrative with an attitude that is applied to those facts, leaving the consumer to believe that they have created an attitude about the target of the propaganda all by themselves, when in reality, that attitude has been spoon-fed to them. The following clip is an example of attitude change propaganda that is not very effective and is relatively easy to spot. It is from Eric Glebe, who is a member of the self-proclaimed racialist group, the National Alliance.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of American Dissident Voices, the internet radio program of North America's foremost racialist organization, the National Alliance. I'm your host and the chairman of the Alliance, Eric Glebe. In contemporary America, we often hear so many statistics that our eyes glaze over. In reality, however, numbers tell stories. I am going to tell you some stories backed up with numbers. These are stories and numbers that every white person needs to hear and act on. Because the Jewish-controlled news media doesn't want you to know, you probably haven't heard that since 2004, black men in America have raped some 100,000 white women. That is a staggering 20,000 black and white rapes per year. Based on these numbers, a black man could be raping a white woman at any given time.
As you can see, Eric Glebe's narrative is not all totally spoken, but is quite clear nonetheless. The narrative is that black men are out to rape your white women, and you need to go do something about it. Now, I have no idea if Glebe's statistics are accurate, but assuming they are for the sake of this thought exercise, the narrative and the statistic are designed to evoke an emotional response and change your attitude. Of course, the flaw in Glebe's narrative is easy to spot. Even if his stats are true, it does not mean that all black men are rapists in waiting, any more than the fact that most white-collar crimes are committed by white people. Therefore, all white people are out to steal your money. Both narratives are silly on their face, and the problems with them are easy to spot. This is why I suspect that Glebe's audience for his podcasts is rather small, and mostly listened to by academics, just so they can have something to point a finger at and write about. Now, let us move on to some attitude change propaganda that is much harder to spot and much more effective. It involves the subtle and careful omission of key facts, presented with an attitude by someone with an appeal to authority.
The recent flap over Ann Coulter's remarks about the 9/11 widows has many people worrying whether the national political conversation has gotten coarser and meaner than ever before. Not by historical standards, says our linguist Jeff Nunberg. What's new is that politics has become just another kind of reality TV.
Is American public discourse more virulent and partisan than ever before? It might seem so. But in fact, the political rhetoric of earlier days was laced with a venom and outright mendacity that could go elbow to elbow with anything you're liable to see in the modern media. It's the setting that's gotten a whole lot weirder. Americans have always enjoyed the spectacle of political brouhahas, but before the advent of talk radio and Fox News, Nobody realized that you could build an entire business model by turning political vilification into a form of popular entertainment. Take Ann Coulter's recent description of the 9/11 widows as witches who were enjoying their husbands' deaths. As defamation goes, that's no more over the top than the things people were saying in the 1864 election, when the Democrats were calling Lincoln a leering buffoon and Horace Greeley was accusing the Democrats of stealing the votes of dead Union soldiers. But it's only in the current age that remarks like those could turn someone into a media celebrity who is invited to appear on Jay Leno and the Today Show to repeat her choicest charges for the delectation of the public. In a way, it's just another sign of the modern triumph of tone over substance. You wouldn't call Coulter a political thinker, no more than you'd call Simon Cowell an arts critic.
What are the key facts that were omitted that the NPR piece relies on to vilify the target? These are the facts they didn't want you to know. Ann Coulter did not vilify all 9/11 widows. Out of 3,000 families who lost someone on 9/11, Ann criticized a group of 4 of them for a very important reason. These 4 women were left-wing political activists who used their platform as 9/11 widows to attack President Bush and other Republicans at any opportunity. If anyone responded to them as a matter of fact and substance, they would pull the victim card out as some sort of shield of righteousness. Let me put it this way. If I had lost a spouse on 9/11 and I shoved that in your face any time a policy discussion came up, and if you disagreed with me on a policy issue, and I responded with, "How dare you disrespect the memory of my wife? I'm just trying to honor her memory and get justice, and you are so cruel as to come after me so personally," etc., so forth, and blah, blah, blah. It would start to get old pretty quick, wouldn't it? But to put an end to it, someone with boldness had to stand up to them and shut them down. Ann Coulter decided to be that person. After Coulter got done with her media campaign against these 4 rather opportunistic women, the elite media was done using them to bash Republicans because, thanks to Ann, we were done using the victim card as a tool to set policy. Ann made this clear in her columns, in her interviews, and made it clear in her book. There is almost no way NPR, or the professor in the clip, didn't know the true context and narrative of Coulter's critique of these 4 women. There is the clever omission of key facts. But what about the attitude? First, they set up an appeal of authority like a drum roll, using an announcer to introduce this super genius linguist as some sort of authority figure on national security policy and political commentators, who then goes on with that cool, calm accent one only hears on public radio to vilify her. He must be credible because the professor uses several fancy $10 words and sounds so smart, doesn't he? And if you want to be smart like him, you had better agree. Well, folks, there is a reason why Professor Klimek said repeatedly when he was teaching journalistic ethics that one should never use a $10 word when a $5 word will do. And now you know the reason why. Both of the clips I played you were designed to persuade you, inform you in their own special way, and entertain you. But since Eric Glebe from the National Alliance made it clear that he is a man with a point of view and is not attempting objectivity, I could not use true journalistic standards to compare them both. But since both clips are attempts to persuade you, I looked up the ethical standards from the Public Relations Society of America. Their website is prsa.org. According to their guidelines, members shall aid informed decision-making, preserve the integrity of the process of communication, be honest and accurate in all communications, and act promptly to correct erroneous communications for which the practitioner is responsible. Can anyone truly, honestly say that either of these two clips came close to meeting these standards. Yet, one organization claims objectivity. The other does not, which leaves the question and an argument. Which clip was more honest in its presentation? Ann Coulter's best friend, Barbara Olson, was on Flight 73 on 9/11.